If it hadn't been for those cute little puppies, we'd probably have remembered Mother's advice to start home in plenty of time. This particular day, Brother Roy and I were sent to get fresh butter and eggs from the Hansons, our nearest neighbors, about a mile away, and stayed overlong playing with the puppies. Playing with puppies was a rarity for us. Living on the edge of a coyote-infested mining town of Granite, Utah, is in the early 1900s. The hungry coyote attacked any dog luckless enough to venture far from camp, quickly cut his hamstrings, then killed him for food. So we saw very few dogs or puppies. When we finally started for home near dusk, Mrs. Hanson added a package of freshly butchered meat to our butter and egg sack, and we hurried on our way. After going quite some distance, we discovered the puppies had followed us and were playfully nipping at our heels. We tried to chase them, but nothing would persuade them to return home. The sudden howling of a coyote nearby, followed by the rapid reports of a shotgun, froze us in our tracks. We were amazed to see a large coyote stalking us, which took off for the hills, with our cute little puppies running like a streak after her. Soon Dad came running to meet us, explaining that as soon as they heard the coyotes howl, they knew we were in for trouble. The smell of the fresh meat had attracted them, and the little puppies were merely following after their dinner. Both my parents were raised in the prosperous farming community of Goshen, Indiana, but moved to Granite, Utah when I was about 3 years old, along with my 3 older brothers and a sister, Ethel. Dad wanted to try his hand at mining, so he staked a claim on a small shack, added 2 rooms and a lean-to, and we called it home for the next 5 years. My brother Roy and I were too young to do much actual work, so we spent our time playing and hiking and fishing along the narrow paths lead to and from the mines. One day, while hiking along the trail on our way back from the mine, we came upon some cuddly black and white kittens shining themselves in the middle of the path. Although kittens were as rare as puppies, we had seen some at the Despain's farm, so I immediately rushed to pick one up. These little kittens proved to be an active member of the skunk family, and left no doubt about it. Roy and I ran all the way home, tears streaming down my cheeks. Mother took one sniff, stripped off my clothes, and wrapped me in a blanket. Dad dug a hole in the yard, put a piece of clothing in, threw dirt on top of it, and then repeated the processes until all of my smelly clothes were buried under layers of dirt. They stayed there for about a week before they were dug up, thoroughly washed, and smelled sweet and clean again. Vacationing in the rough today is a luxury. For us, it was just plain hard work. Just getting food on the table for a family of 7, plus the 3 miners that boarded with us, took a lot of time and effort on Mother's part. In the summer, we walked 2.5 miles to the Despain farm in the valley for fresh fruits and vegetables. Later in the day, one of my older brothers would bring the horse and wagon to carry us and the produce home. We dried our fruit on the hot tin roof of our cabin, keeping it stirred for even drying. One day, while I was stirring, a scorpion stung me on the hand, and I went screaming down to my mother. One of the miners who was there quickly ran over to the mud hole where Mother emptied her wash water, grabbed a handful of mud, and slapped it on my hand. We kept adding fresh mud until the swelling went down. In those days, it was thought a scorpion sting was poisonous. Never having seen a refrigerator, we didn't miss it. We were happy with our ice spring-fed creek, where we kept our perishable food. Dad built a wooden frame, 3 by 4 foot box, covered it with wire mesh, added a hinge lid, and sunk it in the creek. This was our refrigerator, and kept our butter and eggs, milk, and so forth very nicely in covered containers. We usually raised a few dozen chickens for meat and eggs. These had to be pinned inside a wire enclosure to protect them from the coyotes and the sharp-eyed eagles, who would swoop down and carry them off if they were found outside their pen. The men folks also hunted jackrabbit, squirrel, and wild pine chicken. The pine chickens were so named because they ate the pine needles and had to be soaked in salt water in order to remove the strong pine flavor from them to become edible. One winter we bought a quarter of beef from the Despenses and buried it under deep snow near a corner of our cabin in order to preserve it. We had trouble keeping the coyotes away as they kept trying to get it during the night. When we spoke of the comforts of home, we could have been referring to our beds, which were made from the tall, straight sarvisberry trees. Boards were planed, notched, and nailed together to form rows of bunks against one long wall in the bedroom. Our mattresses were filled with fresh straw each spring after the wheat season, being supplied by our friends in the valley. Our kitchen was especially convenient and could be rearranged at a moment's notice merely by moving an orange crate cupboard from one spot to another. Orange crates, either stacked or single, served all our cupboard needs, whether in the kitchen, living room, or bedroom. Mother bought Gerbel or Never Fail flour in 50 and 100-pound sacks, which came in beautifully printed or flowered designs. After ripping out the seams, they were laundered, hemmed, strung across the top of our orange crate cupboards, which looked very fancy to us. These flour sacks also served more practical purposes, such as making our blouses, panties, slips, and pillowcases. If Mother wanted white material, it was only necessary to add strong bleach to the water. All of our floors were smooth, worn boards, easily scrubbed and cleaned with creek water. Our water was carried by the pailful from the creek less than a quarter of a mile away. Whether it was for drinking, cooking, scrubbing, or laundering, our laundry water was heated in a big boiler on a stove in our lean-to. Mother used the lean-to, which was an open three-sided room near the kitchen, as an extra workroom to cook in during the hot summer months. We all used it as a porch and spent many evenings relaxing after a hard day's work in a cool evening breeze. Once a month, Mother would take my sister Ethel and I into Salt Lake City for her monthly supplies of groceries. This was a hard trip for her, but an exciting event for my sister and I. The night before going to Salt Lake, my brothers would borrow a double surrey and 2 horses from our neighbors. At daylight the following morning, Mother and we girls would drive the buggy to Sandy, Utah, which was 18 miles away. In Sandy, we would put the horses in a livery stable and take a streetcar another 10 miles into Salt Lake City. Buying the necessary groceries on a skin-tight budget wasn't easy, especially when replenishing sugar and flour. Beans, rice, cornmeal, and oatmeal were always necessary staples. Whenever Mother could spare a penny or two, she would treat Ethel and I to either peppermint or wintergreen stick candy, or maybe a licorice stick. We usually managed to take a small treat home to my 3 brothers, who never got to the city unless it was necessary to purchase clothing for them. One thing Mother would never be without was a big brown bottle of Peruna. This was her cure for all ailments. Dad always said Peruna cured the women folks and whiskey cured the men. In the 5 years my folks lived in Granite, we never had a doctor for our family or the 3 miners who boarded with us. Although I am now 80 years old, pleasant memories grow sweeter with the passing of time, and the sorrows of yesteryear are long forgotten. Nothing can really erase the scenes of my childhood, a beautiful wedge of time